On the night of April 28, 1998, a wealthy man was found dead in his Tulsa home, shot 8 times. The woman who pulled the trigger didn't run. She waited for the cops, for the questions, for the sentence that would define the rest of her life. Her name? April Rose Wilkens. And if you ask police that night, they tell you she was cold, calculated, and dangerous. A murderer who killed her ex-fiancé in cold blood. But what if I told you that story was never the whole truth? Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories, where the shadows talk back. This is Far From Fiction, the series where true crime cases take center stage, stitched together with the eerie threads of history, horror, and hard-to-swallow truths. If you're drawn to the chilling, the unsolved, and the stories that leave you questioning everything you thought you knew, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join us for every week for original stories, paranormal deep dives, and cases just like this one that are stranger than fiction. Tonight we'll be telling the story of April Wilkens, a woman who the system labeled as a killer, and maybe, just maybe, she was something else entirely. In the spring of 1998, headlines across Tulsa exploded with the name April Wilkens. A well-educated, soft-spoken woman accused of gunning down her ex-fiancé in a violent, calculated act. The victim? Terry Carlton, the son of a prominent local auto dealer, wealthy, well-connected, a man known in elite circles and protected by his name. The act appeared to be premeditated. The suspect had admitted to shooting and remained on the scene. April didn't flee. She didn't deny it. When police arrived, she confessed to the shooting without hesitation. A woman with no prior criminal history, no gang ties, no known motive of greed, and yet there she stood with gunpowder on her hands and blood on her clothes. To the prosecution, it was an open and shut case. April Wilkens was dangerous, a jealous ex with a gun and a score to settle, a murderer hiding in plain sight. But there's something about open and shut cases. They're only that way if you don't ask too many questions. And no one wanted to ask questions about this one. Before the headlines, before the handcuffs, April Rose Wilkens was just a girl from Kellyville, Oklahoma. Quiet, bright, and determined. She graduated near the top of her class at Kellyville High School. Teachers described her as focused, curious, and endlessly kind. The kind of student who stays after class and asks thoughtful questions. The kind of girl who never missed an assignment. Her ambitions took her to Northwestern University, one of the best schools in the country, where she earned a master's degree in prosthetics. April didn't just want a job, she wanted to help people rebuild their lives. Arms, legs, mobility, freedom. That's what she worked towards. She had every intention of building a quiet, meaningful life, but instead, she walked straight into a nightmare. In 1995, April met Terry Carlton at the car dealership. He was charming, older, connected. Terry was the kind of man who knew how to talk, and how to make people listen. For a while, he swept her off her feet. Lavish gifts, expensive dinners, a whirlwind romance. To outsiders, it looked like a fairy tale. But behind closed doors, something much darker was taking root. The kind of darkness that doesn't just show up in photos. The kind that creeps in slowly until it owns you. Abuse doesn't always start with fist. Sometimes it starts with a joke that cuts a little too deep, a hand that grips a little too tight, and a look that tells you, you're mine now. In private, Terry Carlton was not the charming businessman Tulsa had come to admire. He was volatile, controlling, violent. According to April, it began with verbal abuse, then escalated into forced drug use, SA, beatings, and threats to kill her family if she ever left. The paper trail that no one wanted to read, April was hospitalized with injuries consistent of domestic assault. She made repeated attempts to file police reports, but Terry had power and connections. And every time April reached for help, the door slammed shut in her face. He would tell her that if she told anybody, she would kill him. And she believed him. By 1997, she tried to leave, but Terry stalked her, broke into her car, even planted drugs in her car, allegedly to frame her. And he didn't just threaten her life, he made her feel like the only way out was death. What happens when a system that's supposed to protect you turns its back? What happens when every option leads back to him? April Wilkens didn't plan a murder. She wanted freedom. It was just after 9 p.m. when April Wilkens opened her door to the man that she had tried again and again to escape. Terry Carlton wasn't supposed to be there. She didn't want to let him in, but he always had a way of getting what he wanted. What happened over the next few hours was the final descent into horror. April later testified that Terry forced her to take meth again, raped her, taunted her with a gun, and told her that she'd never get away. The gun he brought with him was a .38 caliber revolver, never left his side, until, according to April, he fell asleep. That moment, quiet, fleeting, uncertain, is where the timeline fractures. According to April, she reached for the gun, not to kill, but to stop what she felt like was the inevitable. 8 shots, every one of them fired from Terry's own gun. Some when he was allegedly advancing towards her, others when he lay wounded. But here's what separates this case from an open and shut self-defense. April didn't run. She didn't hide the weapon. She didn't lie. She told police, "I shot him. He was going to kill me, and I didn't know what else to do." From the moment that officers arrived, they treated her like the killer that she would soon be tried as. No toxicology screen for Terry, no rape kit for April, and no serious investigation about her claims of abuse. A woman said that she had been raped, beaten, threatened. Then she killed the man she said did it. And just like that, the system decided she was the threat. April Wilkens was charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors painted her as a cold, calculated killer. A woman who couldn't let go of a failed relationship. They would say that this was no act of self-defense. It was an execution, fueled by jealousy and revenge. But the facts, the real facts, told a different story, and many of them were never allowed in that courtroom. April's abuse allegations were largely excluded. Her claims of rape deemed irrelevant. Expert testimonies on battered women syndrome blocked, and the jury never heard the full story. Because Terry Carlton wasn't just any man. He came from money, from influence. His family's car dealership empire lined the pockets and paved the roads of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And yet, in post-mortem search of Terry's residence, police found multiple live grenades. Not just guns, not just drugs, grenades. And still, the narrative remained. Terry was the victim, April was the threat. April's trial lasted just 2 weeks. Her defense scrambled to do in days what prosecutors had prepared months for. The verdict? Guilty. First-degree murder. April Wilkens was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 45 years. She was just 29 years old when this took place, and when she'll be eligible for parole, she'll be 74. The evidence, the context, the horror she survived, none of it seemed to matter. For more than 2 decades, April Wilkens has sat behind bars. Time has passed, evidence has come to light, and the voices, once silent, are growing louder. April's case has become a rallying cry for advocates of domestic abuse survivors. Her story has been dissected in podcasts, reexamined in legal circles, and shared in whispers across forums and jailhouse walls. Not just as a miscarriage of justice, but as a haunting example of how the system punishes survival. In 2021, though, Oklahoma passed a law designed for cases just like April's. A chance for abuse survivors convicted of violent crimes to seek resentencing if their original trial ignored the context of abuse. April Wilkens became one of the first to petition under the law. And on May 7, 2024, something happened that hadn't happened in 25 years. A Tulsa courtroom reopened her case. The resentencing hearing brought everything back to light. Her abuse, the evidence, the grenades, the police failures, the voices of experts, the silence of the system. April Wilkens should have never went to prison, or at least not for her entire life. She was just trying to fight for her freedom and ended up with life behind bars. What she needed wasn't a punishment, it was protection. A decision hasn't been made yet, but for the first time in over 2 decades, April has something she hasn't had in a very long time. Hope. Hope that her sentence may be reduced. Hope that her story might help someone else survive, and hope that maybe, just maybe, she'll walk free. April Wilkens should be free. Not just because the evidence supports it, not just because the laws have changed, but because she's already paid for her freedom, with years of fear, silence, and survival. On that night of April 28, 1998, April thought she finally escaped. That the man who held her hostage with fists and threats and manipulation was gone. That the nightmare was over. But instead of walking into freedom, she walked into another kind of cage. A system that didn't ask why. That didn't care how long she had suffered. That didn't believe that she was worth saving. April has served her time, and then some. It is time for her to receive the freedom that she thought she won that night. Not in fear, not in shame, but in justice. Her story is not just about abuse, or murder, or a broken system. It's about survival, and survival should not be a life sentence. Thank you for watching this episode of Far From Fiction. If this story moved you or made you think or made you feel something, I'd be honored if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps stories like April's reach more people that truly need to hear it. Here on the Friday Night Campfire Stories, I release 3 series every single week, each one a little bit different but cut from the same eerie thread. Mondays, it's Echoes of the Past, where we dive into the historical hauntings, abandoned places, and forgotten lore that still whisper through the halls. Wednesdays, you're here for Far For Fiction, true crime stories that seem too strange to be real, but are. And Fridays, it's the original story series, the Friday Night Campfire Stories, where we experience a chapter from one of my original own twisted imaginations. So whether you're drawn to the truth, the paranormal, or the stories that keep you up at night, there's a seat waiting for you at the fire. Until next time, be careful to what you believe, because the scariest stories are the ones that are far from fiction. As always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.